Hello Year 10, welcome back to some more history lessons. Today is our third lesson on Whitechapel. I apologise for it being a little bit late. I wasn't able to upload it yesterday for various reasons, but we are here now. We are going to be looking at which are the most useful sources for telling us about policing in Whitechapel. So a lot of source analysis, a lot of exam practice. We're going to be focusing on the question we started looking at last lesson, question 2b, the how would you follow up question. And we're also going to be looking at question 2a, the how useful are sources A and B. Okay, so we want to learn about the sources that we might study to find out about policing in Whitechapel and to begin using criteria to evaluate the usefulness of different sources to improve sources skills for question 2 in the exam. So like I just said, we're focusing very heavily on question 2 of crime and punishment. Okie dokie, so on your worksheet you will see that you have this table. How could you follow up this source to find out more about the behaviour in this school? So clearly, this is a table taken from a school's data about behaviour points and achievement points. Also a little bit of information about absences and attendance and things, but we're going to ignore that for now. You need to think about what is the source telling you and what would you do if you were investigating. So let's say I gave you the task to find out more about behaviour in this specific school, and I gave you this to start off with. What questions might you have to follow up? You can see the numbers are relatively high in terms of how many total points they've got. Not many people have behaviour points except for this one kid, 14 behaviour points, 14 achievement points. Therefore they've got 0 overall because they cancel each other out. Everyone else doing particularly well. So, general assumptions of behaviour in the school, you might say, is fairly good. So I might answer on my worksheet one detail from the source that I could follow up. Why are there so many students with hardly any behaviour points but a lot of achievement points? That's a detail that I've noticed. One question linked to the detail. What happens when a student gets a behaviour point that stops them getting into trouble again? So what is that punishment that means if a kid gets a behaviour point, they don't want to reoffend? What type of source could I use to answer this question? Well, I might want to use their school website to look at their policy on punishment and rewards and explain how this one source might help to answer my question. Well, by finding out how students are dealt with when they misbehave, I would get a better insight into understanding why there are so few students with behaviour points and therefore understand why the behaviour in the school is generally good. Okay, obviously this isn't related to our time period, but it's something to show you that the skill we are developing here can be applied in other instances. It's all about investigation and it's all about honing in those analytical skills to help you in every aspect of life. So let's apply this skill to a Whitechapel question. You will see this source. It is an image. How could you follow up this source to find out more about the effectiveness of policing in Whitechapel in 1888? Now, this clearly is a policeman. Who are these people? What are they doing? So I might say one detail from the source that I could follow up is, was this a common occurrence? And so on and so forth. I would like you on your worksheet to complete the question. Remember, you would only have 5 minutes to do this. It's only 4 marks long. So one sentence for each thing. Make sure this last one is a little bit more developed if you can make it, okay? I know we haven't done this before. Just have a go. If you have no idea what you're doing, have a go, okay? It's always easier for me to help you develop something that you have rather than email me and say, Miss, I can't do it. I need something to work with, okay? So just have a go. Don't worry if it's wrong. This is the first time you've ever done this kind of question. I'm not expecting perfection, okay? Moving on then. Activity 3. Let's start thinking about the usefulness of this source then. So we've talked about how we would follow up in our investigation. But how useful are these school statistics for judging behaviour at school? What are the problems? What other sources could we use to find out about behaviour at school? Now, we touched on this in activity 1, but could you come up with any more ideas on your worksheet for this source? Okay, so pause the video here, fill out your worksheet, and then we will move on. Okie dokie, activity 4 then. Now I know this says discuss with a partner, obviously that's going to be a little bit tricky when we're all self-isolating, but we are still focusing on question 2a. How useful is this source from the illustrated police news, the image that I just showed you when we did activity 2, for telling us about the effectiveness of police in Whitechapel? So what criteria could we use for making a judgment about this source's usefulness? So you might want to think about what makes a source useful. Does it give me information? Does it give me opinion? Is it 100% fact? Does it have to back up what I already know? Is the source complete or does it leave things out? Does this tell us everything we need to know or does it have missing information? And then you've got things like, is it objective, accurate, or typical? Now, if you have a look, you've got complete, objective, accurate, and typical. At GCSE, a lot of people use this method. It's called the Coates method. So is it complete? Is it objective? Does it have any opinion involved in it? Is it accurate? Does it fit in with what I already know? And is it typical? Are there a lot of sources that look like this? Now, if that's the way you would like to analyse your sources, that is absolutely fine. I choose not to use this system because I think it's quite complex, but if that's what you want to use, you go for it. I tend to use nature, origin, purpose. So nature, what is the source? That's the content. What is actually in it? So here I'd say the nature of the source is it's a depiction of a policeman being robbed by thieves and beggars, etc. Origins, I would say it comes from illustrated police news. And purpose, well, is it to inform? Is it to make fun of the police? If it's to make fun of the police, it's useful in telling us what people think about the police. If you're going to make fun of something, you clearly don't think that highly of it. Anyway, that's a lot of me talking. Complete the activity on your worksheet. It's just ideas on whether you think this is useful in telling us about how effective the police are. Okie dokie. Now, on your worksheet, you have a lot of information about using sources. It's almost like a top tips. You have to use the sentence starters on this slide, they're also in your book on your worksheet, to structure your own how-to guide. You could also add some of your own knowledge. So one example of a question type in the examination is, so that's just saying one example of an exam question is, so you might want to say how useful are sources A and B for an inquiry. To test a source's usefulness, you need to have an inquiry. So what is the actual inquiry? Well, inquiry means question, doesn't it? So to test a source's usefulness, you have to have a question to go by. Remember when I said every single source can be useful in one way or another? You just need to work out if it's useful for what you need it for. A criteria is important because a criteria should include. One important thing to consider when using a source is, now that's a good one because do you always trust it? Do you always think the information is accurate? Is it always objective so it's not influenced by someone's opinion? And then finally, propaganda is It can influence a source by An example is. Now this one is a tricky one. It's quite developed. See if you can work it out. I think you can. That's why I've put it here. Okay, pause this here then. Use your worksheet and fill out those sentence starters and I'll move on. Oakley dokley, activity number 6 then. Now this is a little bit of source analysis. So which are the most useful sources in telling us about policing in Whitechapel? You have 6 different types of sources and on the next page of your worksheet you have a line that looks like this. So useful will be at the top, not that useful will be at the bottom. You need to categorise which of these sources you think would be extremely useful to tell us about policing in Whitechapel and then grade them down as to which you think would be the least useful. Now on the worksheet I've put 6 boxes so you can just copy the information from this page onto the box that you want it to be in. I hope that makes sense. There's also an extension. You don't have to do this extension, only if you really want to. It really shows me your reasoning. Now, that is add annotations next to each source to explain why you have put it there. So if you've put police records as the most useful source you could have to find out about policing in Whitechapel, you might want to tell me, I put this here because. Okay, so that would be your extension. However, if you don't want to do the extension, you are just plotting each of these 6 types of sources onto your usefulness line, which is on the next page. Hope that makes sense. Email me if you have any questions about that. Okay, and that is everything, Year 10. I hope this makes sense. I'm really loving the work that you're sending in. You're all working really hard on it. If you have an issue with uploading, as you know, just let me know and we'll problem solve. I'm happy to email you to work out how we can get your work onto Schoology. A lot of you have been saying, well, some of you have been saying I don't have Word or the PowerPoint isn't showing correctly or anything like that. If you can do the work in your book and upload images onto Schoology. A couple of girls have done it. I'm not sure how you worked out how to do that, but well done. Just keep checking Schoology, keep checking your emails, and I will update you as much as I can. Stay safe, and I will speak to you soon. Goodbye, Year 10.